This video is mostly just going to be for fun. However, I did film one of these last year, and it did incentivize me to actually read the books that I had bought and put on my shelf. This is my book backlog from the year, so all the books that I either bought or acquired last year that I have not read yet. There's not going to be a ton. I don't read really fast. I don't read 100 books a year. And so I try not to collect too many, more than I can actually read, because as you know, buying books and reading books are two separate hobbies. It's easy to see a pretty book, buy a pretty book, put it on the shelf, leave it on the shelf. And last year I got through my whole book backlog except for one, which I'm not adding to this list because that was a year ago. New year, new list. So also between this video and the one that was series I started in 2024, those are ones that if any of these books catch your interest, you can be pretty sure that at least one person might be reading them at the same time as you. So if any of the books I talk about in this video or the series I started last year sound really interesting, go ahead and pick those up and we can have some conversations about them. Or better yet, join my Patreon, which $2 and up gets you access to my Discord, and then we can chat more personally about books. Shameless plug, I know. So first, this top one doesn't count because I already had it. His Majesty's Dragon by Naomi Novik. I had this one on my shelf for a little while already, but last year I picked up the next 4 of them. So far I have read His Majesty's Dragon and Throne of Jade. Probably within the next month or so, I'll be picking up Black Powder War, which is the 3rd book in the Temeraire series. After Black Powder War is Empire of Ivory and Victory of Eagles, and there are more after this, although I have heard that this arc of 5 books is a good stopping spot if you're not sure you want to continue and read all the rest. I have been enjoying this series so far. His Majesty's Dragon I loved. Throne of Jade was fine. I have heard that it gets better at the 3rd one, and I'm excited to start it. It's basically just historical fiction with dragons, Napoleonic wartime, and it's really about the man and his dragon. The two of them, their relationship, their travels together, as they learn about the world together. They have to face some things and make some hard choices, and I have also heard that that idea of having to make some hard choices later on comes in more in the further books. But I just love the relationship between Lawrence and Temeraire. It's one of my favorite things. Temeraire might be my new favorite dragon ever. So these 3, as part of my backlog, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get to at least 2 of them this year. Maybe all 3, we'll see. I don't feel overwhelmed with the amount of books I have to read right now, so that's a good feeling. I feel like I can just choose what's next. I never want to feel rushed, like I have to read something. And then after these, the first 2 books in the Codex Alera by Jim Butcher. So I've heard good things about Jim Butcher as an author. I feel like I said that weird. Jim Butcher. And I'm not sure if his other works seem my style, up my alley. Like, I'm not sure I would enjoy them. These seem a little more interesting. They have like the elemental magic, and it's the one that was based on the challenge of, can you write a story that combines the idea of the Roman Legion and Pokemon? There is a tag over the blurb. The Dresden Files. That's his more well-known series. For 1,000 years, the people of blah blah blah. It's covered up by a sticker. Something against the aggressive and threatening races that inhabit the world using their unique bonds with the Furies. Elementals of earth, air, fire, water, wood, and metal. And then there's a boy who struggles with his lack of fury crafting. I don't actually know how long the series is. I'm going to read the first one before deciding whether to collect any more in the series in case I decide that they are just not for me, not my style, whatever. But I'm really hoping to enjoy these. It's a new author for me. It's a series that's been around for long enough that if I do like it, I can just collect the rest. It's like new world, new magic, everything about it is new to me. And so many of the other books that I'm reading are parts of series that I have already started. Like, I already know the world and the characters and the magic and all the things. It's just progressing through that series. And it's kind of exciting to think about starting something brand new that I've never read before. So 2 of those. So far my backlog is up to 5. Next on my backlog are some Raymond E. Feist books. So I have long loved the Magician series by Raymond E. Feist. I love the Empire series that he wrote with Jenny Wurst. I have not read much of his other stuff. There was one I read that I was really disappointed by. I don't remember which one it was, but I have since heard that the common consensus on Raymond E. Feist's works is that some are gems and some are blah. But it's worth reading the blah ones to get the full scope of the world and the story arc. So I found this one used, and I don't know what it comes before or after. It's The King's Buccaneer. This is after the Rift War, so after the Magician series, and it's following Nicholas, the youngest son of Prince Arutha. And I don't know how I feel about reading a series in a world where there's like this huge threat. And a large portion of the story is how are we going to overcome and get past this huge threat, like of world-ending epic proportions. And then the next series set in that world, or the next book or whatever, it's like we just got past that and now there's this new threat of epic world-ending proportions. And it feels like, how many of those can there be in one world? I feel like the stakes just can't go that high that often. And from what I've seen of books set in this same world, it kind of gives that feeling. There's this horrible, awful threat. Resolution. Horrible, awful threat. Resolution. Horrible, awful threat. I don't know. At some point, can the stakes get higher? I don't know. Do they need to? I'd rather just focus on the characters. Anyway, I acquired this one. I don't know if it will be something I read this year or not. We shall see. But the next one on my backlog is also by Raymond E. Feist. Master of Furies. Humorously, the second book on my backlog that has the word Furies in it. The Jim Butcher book is Furies of Calderon. Master of Furies is the 3rd book in this trilogy, the Firemane Saga. I don't remember when I read the first one. I don't think I had this channel yet because I made 0 videos about it. And then I think the second one came out and maybe I read it during the year-long break I took from YouTube because I also made 0 videos about this one. And I'm having a hard time really remembering what they're about. They're not set in the same world as the Rift War. So not the same world as the Magician books and Jimmy the Hand and all those characters. They're their own new thing. And it's been a long time since I read these. So the reason I'm not sure if I'm going to prioritize this book to read at any point this year is because I remember almost nothing about these 2. Which means I would probably have to reread them. And I don't know if I want to yet. I don't know that it's been long enough for a reread. So by putting 1 book on my backlog of books purchased, it's like adding 2 more books to have to read to then read this one. So we'll see. If I get to a point where I don't feel like I have a bunch of other things to read, then I might. I do enjoy Feist's writing, and I remember liking at least the first one better than a couple of the other ones I've read, so we'll see. So counting just Master of Furies, that's up to 7 books on my backlog. I'm not going to count these because I had already read them before last year. Last year, I bought the Tawny Man trilogy. I've been slowly working my way through the Realm of the Elderlings. I read the Farseer trilogy a couple of years ago, more recently read the Live Ship Traders trilogy, and now I am partway through this one. I read Fool's Errand a couple of months ago and fully enjoyed it, got me fully back on board to continuing through the Realm of the Elderlings, and I am now partway through the second one, so as far as like counting books on my backlog, I'm only going to count the 3rd one, Fool's Fate. Nice thick paperback we've going on there. It is over 900 pages. It's hard to see how many pages there are without accidentally spoiling the end. If you're familiar with the Realm of the Elderlings, there's different trilogies and groups of books that all take place in the same world, but it's not a continuous story. The Farseer books follow Fitz as the main character, and then the Live Ship Traders trilogy follows a full different cast of characters in a different part of the world, and isn't really connected to Fitz's story. There's like a few Easter eggs, a few things that might make more sense about the world, but I would say isn't required to read before moving on to the next trilogy, which comes back to Fitz 15 years after the end of the Farseer trilogy, following I always say the Fitz and the Fool. Except now Fitz is all grown up. He's not the young angsty teenager anymore. Up to 8 books. Now I'm starting to feel like it's a bigger stack than I originally thought. Those people who read 8 books in a month are like, that's nothing. Then I have books that I did not buy. I was sent by authors, actually the author's PA, for review. Last year was the first time in my YouTube video creator journey that I was sent things to review. And the first set of physical books that I was sent was this set of The Songs of Chaos by Michael R. Miller. I got the first 3, which is all that's currently out. The 4th one is being worked on, and it's going to have a total of 5. And with it came this novella, which I think is a precursor to the main series. I've really enjoyed this series so far. I always love a good dragon or dragon rider fantasy story. And this one's very reminiscent of Aragon, which itself is reminiscent of a lot of other fantasy stories. And of these so far, I have read Ascendant and Unbound. Defiant is one that I'll probably read soon because the author is working on finishing up the 4th book, and I am on the ARC team for that one, so I think I will get the next one a little early to put a review out for it so it's ready when it gets released. So I'd like to make sure I have this one read before that. And then the prequel novella, I'm not sure. It's not a necessary part of the story arc. It is about one of the main characters, so it would bring some more understanding of part of the story that's happening and some of the decisions that some of the characters make. But I'm not going to prioritize it. It's short, so I could squeeze it in between other books when I have time, when I feel like it, whatever. Or if I read Defiant and it's still going to be a little while before the 4th book comes out, then I can squeeze this one in during that time. Up to 10. And then another book that I was sent for review was Stone and Sky by Z.S. Diamanti, which I did read last year, right when I got it. But this one came with a book of short stories set within the same world, which I have not read. I kind of love that on the spine, where the number it would be in the series says 0. It says it's a Preludes collection. I don't know where it fits in. I've only read the first one. And again, I feel about this one the same way I feel about Stand of the Stone Fist, Last Stand of the Stone Fist, the shorter one. That if I have time to squeeze it in between other books, I will, but I don't feel a need to prioritize it. It's not part of the series. I'm probably not going to finish this series, but if I'm in the mood for some short stories or like a palate cleanser or something, this would probably do the trick nicely for that. Up to 11. Which does bring me to the last one, finally. And that is The Rithmatist by Brandon Sanderson. This one, I wasn't sure if I was going to read or not. My brother found it and asked me if I wanted it. My main thing just being that it's not the normal fantasy style that I tend to be drawn towards. I did read the first Skyward book by Brandon Sanderson. That's one of his YA science fiction novels. And to me, it just wasn't what I wanted when I read Brandon Sanderson. When I read Sanderson, I want Mistborn, Stormlight Archive, Cosmere, basically. This is a non-Cosmere book. I'm not sure if it's young adult or middle grade. It's like the level that I could read or my son in a couple of years could read. So I don't know if this one's going to be for me or for him. I'm trying not to collect too many books for my children until I know more what they really like. So Rithmatists have the power to infuse life into 2-dimensional figures known as chalklings. They are humanity's only defense against the wild chalklings, merciless creatures that leave mangled corpses in their wake. So it seems a little steampunky. The art in it is cool. There's a map. It has like diagrams on how to create chalklings, which seems interesting. So I think this is a little beyond my older son right now, a little below what I would normally read, kind of in that weird middle area. So it might be when I think my son is getting old enough to read it, I might read it first. Not that there would be anything in a middle grade Sanderson book that I would be worried about, but more like to have conversations about it, like parent-child book club kind of thing. So technically part of my backlog, but probably not one that I'm going to read this year. And I don't know when I'll plan on reading it. That could change if I read like some big epic fantasy and I want something a little lighter. I say light, it will probably be easy to read, but looking at the prologue, it actually starts kind of intense. So that's 12. 12 books in my backlog. That's only one a month. I can do that. I'll probably read twice that many. I will put the name of each book I just talked about in the description so you can refer back to that if any of those sounded interesting. I'll also put a link to my Instagram and my Patreon, by the way. Thank you, patrons. I appreciate you guys a lot, and I wish you luck on however big your book backlog is right now. Happy reading. Bye.